manage communications for Highfill. I am not an engineer. I wouldn't consider myself really a math person. And in fact, I probably never would have really envisioned myself in this career in engineering. And so when we were putting this presentation together, I kind of thought, well, why is that? Why wouldn't I have thought of myself as being in engineering? So that's where we got our title, Who Wants to Be an Engineer? And so I'm going to start by just asking you guys kind of what you think of when you hear the word engineer or engineering. Okay, well, these are all really good words. I did hear the one that I was kind of looking for is like the antisocial kind of thing. When I was growing up, when we talked about engineers, that's kind of the stereotype I had, lots of math. And again, this is a math-oriented presentation, so there is a lot of that. But we're going to, as we go through this presentation, kind of look at some of the other side of the engineering, the type of people who get involved in it, and that sort of thing. So I guess we'll tell you a little bit about us first. Highfill is a civil engineering consulting firm. And we help our clients, which are mostly local governments, find solutions to their most challenging water and wastewater problems. Tyler actually founded the company in 2004, made it through the Great Recession, which is impressive and a testament to all the folks who contributed to getting us here. So I guess maybe one thing we can talk about really quick is how civil engineering is a little bit different because there's lots of different types of engineering out there. So civil engineering or civil engineers, they plan, design, and construct infrastructure projects and systems in the public and private sector. So you're like roads and bridges, and airports and power systems. And then what we really focus on is water and wastewater. But you probably have the other engineering branches like chemical engineering and mechanical and electrical and all that sort of stuff. So what we're talking about today is civil. That's our specialty. So just a heads up. The type of services that we provide are going to be things like replacement or rehab of old water and sewer pipelines, water tank improvements, water and sewer master planning, water and wastewater treatment plant improvements, and pump station renovations. So some of our clients are going to be mostly local governments in North Carolina and South Carolina. So the ones around here, you have City of Raleigh, Town of Cary, Town of Apex, Wilmington, just all throughout North Carolina and South Carolina. We also have some industrial facilities, like we have a poultry farm that we help out, a phosphorus mining company, some residential planners, and then we actually have a new pretty cool job, which is a renewable energy pipeline, which is going to take hog waste and turn it into to power, which is a new field for us, but it's exciting. But mostly we're doing water and wastewater for local governments. Our offices are in Cary, Wilmington, Winston-Salem, and North Carolina, and then Columbia, South Carolina. And that's so we like to be no more than 2 hours away from all of our clients, so that's why we have our locations that way. And we aren't really looking to be some giant international firm. We're Carolinas focused. So back when I was talking about what our services are, pipelines, that kind of thing, you kind of think, why would somebody get into that who wants to look at pipelines all day or that kind of thing? But actually water and wastewater infrastructure, maybe it's not like the most glamorous thing in the world, but delivering safe and clean water is a giant valuable resource, and it is a big way that we contribute to our communities. And being service focused is one of the things that kind of defines our culture, our company culture, and the people who join our company. So it's not really surprising that the folks who join us in this pursuit are excited about water. So what kind of skills does it take to be an engineer? I would say that math skills are certainly important. You can see here you have this like system curve and all this sort of stuff they have to analyze. I don't even know what I'm looking at for the most part here, but the engineers do, thank goodness. But it's not just math to be an engineer. You also have to have a lot of soft skills, and here's why. So in this example, this is in Kinston, and you can see we've dug up this huge part of the roadway to replace a pipeline. And for us, we're replacing an old sewer. But to the business owners here, we're blocking their parking area. And to the public, we're making them late for work. And so you can see how that could cause some, I mean, hopefully we're not making them too late for work, but any kind of a infrastructure work a lot of times involves a little bit of inconvenience, which requires us to, one, think through those before they become a problem, go ahead and make sure that those are accounted for, and then actually dealing with them as they come up. Similarly, we have here, we're providing clean water to folks, and then to the homeowner, we're destroying their yard. Similarly here, we're here pumping wastewater away from your house, and then to the neighborhood, you're creating a smelly eyesore. So you have to think through all these things as you're developing your plans and your designs, and not just that. You have to involve the community throughout all of these processes. And so it takes people who are not just these antisocial folks. Nope, these folks are in front of committees, they're in front of whole neighborhoods, in front of communities, interacting with the public, interacting with all different agencies. So it's very important to have some of these soft skills like communication, conflict resolution, creativity, dependability, and leadership. And I'll hit on the communication really fast, because something that I think gets a little bit lost with all of the STEM talk is that there is a ton of writing, at least in the civil engineering. There is a ton of writing, a ton of it. And I know my husband is very like math oriented, but the reason I asked him one time, he's very kind of engineering. And I asked him, I was like, why did you not get into engineering? It's so, it's who you are. You're just, you act like everybody I work with. And he said, well, it's because I was a really strong writer and I didn't want to go into something that was so math based. Well, I wish he had, because he would have found that writing is just a ginormous part of it. Something I hope that you'll keep in mind is that, yes, math is a big part of it, but it is certainly not the only part. And the types of folks who might go into engineering are not necessarily just the math folks. It could be people who are maybe not as strong in math, but are strong writers that could actually really excel. And so what kind of people are drawn to the engineering profession? We have all types. We have all kinds of cultures, and we have musicians and athletes and folks who work on farms, just all kinds of personalities and strengths and skills and hobbies. But along with it, so also within engineering, you have a bunch of other supporting folks. So you have Chris and Paige, who are both former teachers, and they're involved in engineering, but on the accounting side and on the project assistant side. We also have someone who is just an amazing IT person who's involved. And then I work on a lot of proposals and communications efforts and website, that sort of thing, which are all important parts of engineering now too. Here are some of our newcomers. You can probably guess, so of our 3 interns, 2 are considered introverts and 1 is an extrovert, and you can probably tell which of those we have. And then also, like Julie, we have another former intern who is now an employee. So we got a lot of new folks coming in.
Miller is in high school. Well, he'll be a freshman in college this coming fall. So he just graduated from high school. Bobby is a student at A&T, and then Brenna is she at NC State?
Yes.
I should know these things. And then Kai was an intern with us from NC State. So most summers we look for students to do some internships with us.
Most of our employees are going to be 4-year college degree employees.
Civil engineering, is it civil?
Yeah, civil engineering.
Environmental too.
There's also, environmental. And we have a couple folks that are agricultural or bio-ag engineering. There's some crossover there as well. We do have occasionally look for folks with 2-year degrees. It's just, in our case, it's a little lower percentage. We hire a lot of college graduates, and having that academic foundation is huge. I mean, that's where it starts, because you learn so much that we just can't teach on the job. But the reality is that education doesn't really put them in a position to solve problems, because there's all these interwoven things between the technical aspects of what we do. And really, that's the difference between the ones that really excel in their careers and and ones that kind of struggle is how they take that foundational knowledge that they learned in academia and expand it into real applications in the world.
Just one more thing about Highfill. We have a tagline, and that is engineering is our profession, service is our passion. And that goes along with the type of people that we hire. And you can see these are, kind of our folks in the field, looking at pump stations. I think they're around a water tank here, doing some sewer or manhole investigations here, checking out a pipeline across the creek. I think she's at a water treatment plant there. And then service is our passion. And you can see the types of folks that that join our company tend to be involved in all sorts of areas of the community. And it's really important to us that our folks feel that connection to the community, because that's, that's where we're working every day. And that's it's just a big part of service is a big part of this industry.
I'd like to introduce Julie to you. She is one of our new engineers. We've talked a little bit about her path from intern, and she was a Wake Tech student and an NC State student. And we just wanted her to share with you her journey here and anything else that she feels would be valuable for you to know as you guide your students through this. So Julie, take it away.
Throughout my academic years, I was always good at math and I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed the challenges that came with every problem and the satisfaction of being able to solve them. Like you mentioned before, the problem solving is a main part of the engineering. At some point in my life, I thought that I could find that in accounting. But after reading a finance and accounting book, I realized that I was greatly mistaken. That is when I looked into the engineering curriculum with excitement. Thus, shortly after arriving in the US, about 7 years ago, which is crazy, I realized I researched for the best engineering colleges, and that's when I found out about NC State University. Since then, it was my dream and goal to study there. Unfortunately, when I applied while still in high school, I was denied the opportunity. I had troubles with my transcript from Colombia being combined with the 2 semesters I had done in the US high school. I was heartbroken. However, everything happens for a reason. I found out that there was more than one way to get to where I wanted to, and that was through Waitek. That was actually how I met James Martin, Mr. Martin, I used to call him. Waitek was truly a blessing for me, especially since at the time I did not have the financial resources necessary to go to NC State. My time there was amazing. I made many lifelong friendships. I've learned so much about culture and diversity. The teachers were really caring about student success. The teacher and student relationship was very respectful, which I appreciated the most because it was something I didn't see in the US high school. And I did as many classes as I could so that I didn't have to pay as much at NC State, which worked out perfectly. I graduated from Waitek with 2 associate's degrees, one in science and one in engineering. And that's when I joined Highfill as an intern. So I think Tamara was talking about that. So I got the 2 associates and then move on to Highfill. And I was so sure about studying industrial engineering at the beginning of my academic career because I was still somewhat interested in business. But the more I learned and got involved, the more I was inclined to civil. My internship at Highfill made me realize that that was my path. I felt that with civil engineering, I could help my community, like Allison said, way more than I would as an industrial engineer. After a year at Highfill, I went back to school, this time finally to NC State. I came back to Highfill for a summer internship, and a year after, I got my bachelor's degree, and here I am back again. So, yes, I kept coming back, and I wouldn't have done it any other way. Now I'm finally here, hopefully for the long run. I do wish, however, I would have applied to more scholarships than I did. And that was because for my first 2 years in the US, I thought that scholarships were given based on grades. And I was unaware that I needed to apply for them. So that would be my main recommendation for teachers, to incentivize students to apply constantly to multiple scholarships, give them advice, and relate with them by telling them your own journey. I've also realized through talking to my classmates that many US students are scared to ask questions and think that they will look dumb if they do ask. But one of the traits as an engineering is curiosity and willingness to learn. And asking questions is very important to get there, especially in math, because concepts build up to get more complex every time. Thus, it is necessary for classrooms to be open and non-judgmental. I tell my life story as a series of little miracles that has happened because that's the way it has been. And sorry, I get emotional. So I was very desperate to find a job. Like you say, it's very difficult. Uh, and I was accepted to one of another firm. I don't remember the name, but it was in North Raleigh, and it was really far away from my house at the time. And I was excited to get in because it was like, hey, I finally got a job. It turns out that they didn't realize that I had a work permit for only 1 year. So after they saw that, they were like, no, sorry, we can't do that. So I started asking my family members, and it was crazy because my brother, he played baseball with Tyler's son, and that was a long, long time ago. He gave me the opportunity to work here, which it was a true blessing. And when I got here, I started as a CAD technician, and I have done SolidWorks at the time at WateTech, which helped a lot because SolidWorks, it was very similar to AutoCAD. I explained the project that I did with Mr. Martin, and that was one of the base. I put that in my curriculum, and I had done some volunteer work at Habitat for Humanity. And at the time, like you say, I wasn't sure either industrial or civil. It was one of my two choices for to study. I knew I wanted to be an engineer, but whenever I was in Habitat, I met someone that was in civil, and he said, "Oh, this is construction too." So I was like, maybe. I'm not sure yet. Let's see what's into the civil part. And when I got into Highfield, I realized that, hey, I can help my community more. I've always was interested in that as well. Because whenever I was building a house with Habitat, and it finished, the house was finished, I was like, wow, I helped building that house. It was amazing. So, and I found that with Highfield, that whenever we finish a project, we can pass by and see it and have that satisfaction of us helping the community, like Allison mentioned.
Laura Stiles is one of our engineers in the Cary office, and she is going to share with us today her, she's got such a neat background getting her where she started to where she is, and we're glad she's here with us. So Laura, share away.
All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so my background is somewhat unusual. I guess I don't really feel like I had a conventional path to engineering per se. All the way through school, I was really good at math and science, and that's just what I was drawn to. But I didn't really know what to do with that. I guess all I really knew of growing up was doctors or lawyers or scientists or accountants, but I didn't really know anything about engineering. Actually, I didn't really know what engineers even did. And so that wasn't really on my radar growing up. But when I was in high school, I took as many like physics and chemistry and calculus classes as I could, because that's kind of like what I was interested in. And then kind of parallel to that, I started traveling with my parents a lot to China. They had factories out there to make furniture. And that's kind of like where I first started getting fascination for water and wastewater, and I guess learning how different it is in different countries and how privileged we are in, you know, the UK or the US, where, you know, we all take flush toilets for granted. And in particular, this one time I was at the factory where my parents bought wood from, and the kiln caught on fire, which is you know, this big furnace that dries wood out before making it into furniture. And I was just standing there waiting for like the fire department to show up, and of course there isn't one. And so I kind of questioned, like, why is that? Why do they not have this? You know, I guess I always assumed that it was a given, that, you know, that was part of society. But I didn't really think that much of it. I guess at that point I was still leaning towards science. So I had planned to go to the University of Texas at El Paso. And originally I was going to go for science. I didn't exactly know where that was going to take me, but that's what I applied for. And I got there the first day of orientation, and we were lumped in with the engineering students. And I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, yeah, that sounds cool, I'll do that. And so that's how I got into engineering. So as you can see, I thought about it for a long time before I jumped in. And then of course, civil engineering is super broad. You know, people think of structural engineering, particularly bridges and that kind of thing. So going in, it was still kind of broad to me. Had a lot of different classes: geotech, structural, water, transportation. So I still was leaning towards water and wastewater, want to learn more about that. And so I got an internship with TCEQ, which is the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. It's kind of like the NCDEQ here in North Carolina. And so that summer, I spent the entire time just going around taking wastewater samples, water samples, analyzing them, sending off to a lab. Any kind of like environmental remediation efforts, like underground storage tanks. We went and tested the soils, and basically that's all I did. We had a super cool boss, and he said, I want you guys to have fun and to learn. So, you know, whatever anyone's doing, you can go. There's like this entire region of West Texas all the way up to like San Antonio, where we would go and do these sampling. And so that's where I really got interested in, you know, water and wastewater. After that internship, I got an internship at a local environmental firm. They basically did geotech and environmental site assessments. And that's where I learned I didn't enjoy doing that, because I also thought that I might go in for environmental work. And then I guess I missed the point I was trying to make there. I had a boss at TCEQ who I was talking to about opportunities, and he mentioned he had a friend that owned an environmental firm. And so that's how I got the second internship. And then the next summer, I was going into like water and wastewater classes, like my junior year, and I was wanting to know more about this work that a professor was doing at the local desalination plant in El Paso. They actually have the US largest inland desalination plant, and he was doing a bunch of tests out there for removing silica. So I was interested in that, and I told him, you know, if you have anything come up, you want me to, like any lab work or anything like that, you know, let me know, and you know, I'm interested in learning. So not too long after that, he had an opening and he was like, hey, I'm trying to do this research paper. I could use your help. We're running like a sampling station and would love your help with that. And I said, okay, sure. And so I did that up until I graduated from UTEP. And he was probably the most inspirational person, I think, in my early years of school, was that water and wastewater engineer. Right when I was graduating, I was like, man, like, I want to do more like water and wastewater, but I don't know if it's worth like getting a master's degree. And this guy, of course, had a PhD. And so I asked him, like, what are your thoughts on that? And he was like, honestly, I wouldn't pay for a master's degree if I were you. If you get a free ride, I would take it. But other than that, I would just go and get experience. It's basically the same thing. And I said, okay. So I applied to a few schools and went to UT Austin for grad school. And they gave me a full ride, so I couldn't turn that down. Got to UT Austin and I got my master's degree there. That's where the really hard classes started. I thought all that chemistry and Laplace transforms and differential equations would never come handy, but that's where I learned the use of those. So I went to UT, and I also got a job while I was working there as well. I worked at the City of Austin, and that's where I learned to do like seal hydraulic modeling. They wanted to model the entire city, and at that point that was kind of new. I guess it was like 11 years ago now. And so I learned how to do that while simultaneously getting my degree. And then a year later graduated and got my first job in Houston. Actually my first job in Houston full time was a modeling job. That's how I was chosen for that. So I did that for about a year and a half in. I decided that I didn't want to be pigeonholed. Because I was working in a big firm. They had about 500 people. I say big, I guess that's medium size, but you know, there was about 300 people in the office that I worked in. So there was a lot of folks doing a lot of different things, and I had become like the modeling professional. They were flying me all over Texas to do modeling, and I was like, I don't want to be stuck doing that. You know, what I really wanted to do was like water and wastewater treatment. And unfortunately at that firm, like, I think they just didn't move quick enough to make the change, or maybe they didn't think I was serious, or I don't know, maybe they just wanted me to be a modeler. But I found another job where I could really dive into that stuff. And that's where I really started enjoying like a smaller firm and having like a wide range of experience. And so that's when I started doing like mostly wastewater treatment plants, a couple water plants, pump stations, stormwater pumping stations. And yeah, that's the kind of work that I really enjoyed. And so ever since then, I learned that I prefer the smaller companies and the wide range of experience. And then I guess even since then, I've done a wide range of projects, and now even more so doing collection systems and distribution systems and underground storage tank removal, paving projects, site work, you know, really quite a wide range of projects. I think one of the things I did early on was to get to know my professors and obviously do well at jobs and to get references and always ask around. I think I was working the entire time I was in school pretty much, and partly well, for money, but also to find out if I enjoyed what I was doing. I didn't want to wait, you know, until I graduated and then not realize that I didn't like what I was doing. But yeah, the first job I had, it was just like a regular interview. No one knew who I was. And then from there, he had a friend that owned a company, and then from there I had a professor, and that professor knew some other professors at UT and put in a good word for me. And then when I graduated UT, they could, you know, the professors there were saying, hey, like, these are great firms, these ones not so much, like, you know, they were always giving advice. And I honestly say a lot of that was not necessarily broadcasted. I felt like I had to go and actually make connections with the professors and my bosses, and purposefully ask them and tell them, I'm interested. Can you let me know if you know anyone that's hiring, or any opportunities that come up? And then another thing that I did since I've been working full time is being involved in professional organizations. The first one that I was drawn to out of just personal passion is Engineers Without Borders. And so when I was in Houston, I started off on a team. They had about 8 teams there. It's one of the biggest chapters in the US. I was on the El Salvador team, and then I became like the team lead. And then we went to El Salvador and we implemented a new pump for the well and a new tank. And then from there, I became the secretary of the chapter and then the president of the chapter before I left to come to North Carolina. And I met a lot of people there. And I think that that's always been helpful too. Just meeting people from other organizations, learning what they do and making those connections, and of course the clients as well. And interesting enough, when I moved to North Carolina, I was working at another firm, and we had connections that both worked at the same companies back in Houston. It's like, wow, the engineering world is really small if you think about it. It's really not that big. But I definitely, being out of state, I kind of felt like I was starting over again here. So when I joined, when I moved here, I joined the Public Education Committee in AWWA, and I was the chair of that for 2 years, and we lead, one of the big things we do that I led the effort of was a water model tower competition for elementary and middle school students. And so that has also been, a good thing for me to get involved in, and also another networking opportunity as well.